This season, Instacart has your back to school. As in, they've got your back to school lunch favorites like snack packs and fresh fruit. And they've got your back to school supplies like backpacks, binders, and pencils. And they've got your back when your kid casually tells you they have a huge school project due tomorrow. Let's face it, we were all that kid. So first, call your parents to say I'm sorry, and then download the Instacart app to get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes all school year long. Get a $0 delivery fee with your first 3 orders while supplies last. Minimum $10 an order. Additional terms apply.
We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to This Song Is Yours. We're a music podcast that chats to artists, musicians and creatives on their songwriting craft and upcoming projects. I'm your host, Simon Fink, and welcome to episode 289. We're welcoming back K.Flay to the pod today. Always an absolute delight to chat with, the American songwriter is releasing her brand new record, Mono, later this week. We always have such a fun chat when K.Flay is on, so we hope that you enjoyed this episode. Before we get to our conversation, please make sure you subscribe to this podcast to stay up to date on all new episodes. If you like, you can also follow us across all of our social media channels. Details for all can be found within the show notes of today's episode. Our guest today is K.Flay. She's a Grammy Award-nominated artist who began songwriting, rapping and singing back in college at Stanford and began producing her own mixtapes. In her time since then, she's gone on to release 4 studio records and has collaborated with artists like Walk the Moon, Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine and Imagine Dragons. Although she's releasing what is her 5th studio record later this week, which is titled Mono, this is almost like a bit of a reset for K.Flay. In August of 2022, she awoke to total hearing loss in one of her ears, which is not ideal for anyone, let alone a musician. This incredible record is a documentation of the feelings she was confronted with during that time and discusses themes like loss and transformation. In today's episode, we talk to K.Flay about the experience of losing her hearing and how she managed to return to making music confidently. We talk about collaboration and discuss working with her partner on one of the album's best tracks, Spaghetti. We also maybe try and find out whether we'll see K.Flay back in Australia anytime soon. You'll have to listen to the episode to find out. Mono is out later this week, and we've included links within the show notes if you'd like to pre-order the record. We also want to say a massive thank you to Mille from Positive Feedback for her help with today's episode. Here is our conversation with K.Flay. Please welcome back to This Song Is Yours, K.Flay. Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great. I just received an apple fritter at my door, so life arguably could not be better.
There are definitely worse ways to spend your days than receiving treats delivered to your door.
Oh man, treats. What's life without treats? You know, I was saying to somebody the other day, I finished dinner and I'm just like, I need a sweet treat. I need a treat. More than ever, the past 5 years in particular, I'm like, man, I need some treats.
I feel like it's almost, especially maybe the last 3 years or so, where everyone has been going through a bit of a tougher time. It's almost like you know what, I deserve this after my dinner. I'm going to treat myself.
You know, I think the joy of the sweet treat, the small treat, is a fundamental human joy that I personally have been really relishing lately. So after our conversation, I'll have some bites. I won't do it during our conversation. That would not be appropriate.
Please feel free. If I have a long-winded question, I'll give you a little tug of the ear, put yourself on mic, and you do what you need to do.
Oh, I love that.
I do appreciate you chatting with us today. There's a brand new record out from yourself later this week. It is titled Mono. Firstly, congratulations on another brilliant record under your belt. How are you feeling with this record coming out?
I am feeling very invigorated and energized. I think, the making of this record for me was unconventional in that in the early stages of making it, I had this massive change. I lose my hearing in my right ear, and I'm kind of thrown into the washing machine a little bit, like both physically and psychologically. And so, in the aftermath of that, I really gained this renewed sense of focus, excitement, commitment to just the thing itself. I think this is my fifth record, my fifth full-length record, which isn't counting like all the mixtapes and things, I've done along the way. It's like I've made a lot of music, and what's really interesting to me is how quickly this record came together, considering these factors, and just how urgent it felt to me to create it. In many ways, I had the urgency of someone making their debut record. Mm-hmm. And so I feel in the same way that when you put your first record out, you're like, oh my God, I'm so excited. I feel like that. I feel very excited.
Well, as you should, and it is a brilliant record. If you're okay to talk about it, please let us know. If not, please let us know. Yeah, of
course.
You did go through this thing where part of, or I think all of your hearing in one ear just disappeared one morning and not able to be explained to by the doctors. As a musician, I imagine that is, one of the most scariest things that kind of happens to you in that morning. Do you remember your initial thoughts when that occurred?
I was so physically ill at that time. So what was happening in my body, right, is like, they don't know why, as you mentioned, but essentially my hearing on my right side just got knocked out. And one of the effects of that is my equilibrium was brought essentially to zero, almost like a compass when you put it by a magnet, right? It's just like spinning. So I was really sick. I let's just say I used a few emesis bags. We'll put it that way. I was in the ER, like the whole thing. I was very ill. So I didn't fully have my right mind and all of my cognitive capabilities in that moment. I will tell you, when I saw the first nurse who saw me at the urgent care for intake, and she looked at my ear and said, "There's nothing in your ear," I had a sense immediately that something really bad was happening. And I felt strangely pretty calm throughout the process. I had joked to my friends like a week or two in, I was like, good thing I've been reading all those Buddhist books. Jeez. Like, it was just, I was like, God damn, now I have to put this into practice. I did feel like I was able to have some equanimity right from the outset. But I was very scared. And I also felt really bewildered by the world. It took me several months just to be able to, it's hard to explain. It's like my brain was recalibrating and reorganizing itself. So it was hard for me to be just out and walking and hearing noises coming from all directions, because you lose your echolocation when you only have one working ear. So the outside world became a very disorienting and chaotic place. And I tried listening to music a couple times and just like couldn't. It was like very upsetting and bad. Mm. So I was like, oh my God, this is going to be really bad. And I sort of got forced into listening to music because I had written a song for a film that actually came out this summer, a film called Mille. And I had to listen to a mix of it for this movie. And my manager was like, well, you don't have to listen, like in the sense of someone else can approve it, but that's not your style. I was like, you know. So I put on my headphones, put them in mono. There's a lot of accessibility options on a cell phone, which are actually really cool. And you can listen to everything in mono if you have single-sided hearing like I do. Put it in mono and hit play. And I like sobbed because it was different, but it was also like, okay. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be able to do this. And that was really the turning point for me.
Firstly, thank you very much for sharing that. I can imagine I can only imagine it was quite traumatic. So thank you for kind of going through that with us. Do you think that that's partly where that sense of urgency that you were talking about before, that kind of came from with this record, in terms of with something happening so suddenly and being so uncertain, that the urgency to not just complete the record, but to be able to kind of move forward and continue being you kind of came from?
Very much so. I do think there was an element of proving something. And I don't even know, I think was proving it to myself, because I don't, it's not like someone's looking over my shoulder like, you can't do it. I didn't have like that kind of shadowy figure, but I do think the urgency came from wanting to prove, okay, I can do this. And it also came, I think, from wanting to capture the feeling while it was happening. It's almost like being a wildlife photographer, and like the grizzly bear is there. You're like, I got to take the pictures now. My shutter speed can't be off. It was that feeling of a little bit me knowing, okay, I am in this really, really unique moment in my own life. And this is my shot to document it and explore it. Because every day my sense of things is changing. So I think that was an element of it as well.
Yes, I can only imagine. Like I can't. It's got me flustered, as you can hear, that I can't even kind of begin to work out what you must have been going through. But this record is gorgeous. You kind of address what happened in parts of the record, which I kind of love as well. And then I feel that there's also a lot of the songs that are almost as if nothing happened, in a way, in terms of that you've continued, you picked yourself up, dusted yourself back off, and just continued moving forward, which I absolutely love. I was hoping that I might be so bold to ask about one of my favorite tracks on this record that is coming out on Friday. It's called Spaghetti, and it features Kid Sister. Loved this track. Very nostalgic, main character kind of vibes with this track. Can you talk us through, I guess, where this song came from?
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you love it. I will say this song has a really great story. So when I was beginning to conceptualize the record, once I was starting to be like, okay, I can do this again. And moreover, I need to do it now. And I need to like rally the troops, and I need to get in the studio and understand what I'm doing. I called really an acquaintance of mine at the time, a producer named Paul Meany, and had him over for dinner and was like, hey, I have a proposition for you. He was like, what? I was like, I would like for you to executive produce my album. He was initially like, I don't even think you need an executive producer. I think you're good. And I was like, no, Paul, trust me. I need someone, and this is something I talked about in this record. I need someone to help create productive tension. This is what I need right now. Like, I'm already experiencing internal tension. That's taken care of. The caprices of fate have secured that for me. Now I need musical tension, and you can create that for me. So anyhow, Paul very graciously hopped into that position. And one of the first things he had me do is he was like, send me every single thing you have made, like everything from, we set some date like a year before or whatever. And one of the things that I had made, it was the second song I wrote after the hearing loss. And I really did it as an exercise of healing. I wrote it with my girlfriend whose band is featured on the song. And I just asked her, I was like, hey, would you be down to just go, and I have a studio out back, go into the studio and just like, can we just make something so I like can practice recording? And
this season, Instacart has your back to school. As in, they've got your back to school lunch favorites like snack packs and fresh fruit. And they've got your back to school supplies like backpacks, binders, and pencils. And they've got your back when your kid casually tells you they have a huge school project due tomorrow. Let's face it, we were all that kid. So first, call your parents to say I'm sorry, and then download the Instacart app to get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes all school year long. Get a $0 delivery fee with your first 3 orders while supplies last. Minimum $10 an order. Additional terms apply.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
I'm still getting used to how to sing and how to locate pitch and just, getting kind of my feet like stable on the ground. And she was like, yeah, of course. It was the first time we had ever written anything together. We've been dating. She's a musician as well. And we just wrote Spaghetti, almost exactly as you hear it on the record. Those vocals are from the demo session. And I sent it to Paul and he was like, you got to put Spaghetti on the record. I was like, what? That song was like what? No, that's not supposed to go on. This is, this is a heavy rock record, Paul. And he was like, no. And he was like, dude, just trust me. Like, it's part of this world. We need that flavor in this world. Like, we need that flavor at that dish at the restaurant. I mean, double pun intended. And so, yeah, and then Sarah, my girlfriend, and I went back in with Paul and like retracked some of the instruments. We had Eric and Prada who drummed across the whole record. He tracked drums on that, but we kept, again, the vocals. We kept a lot of, original stuff, and we tried to retain the, as you say, the nostalgia and the intimacy of that. Cause it was, it's a song that was made without any self-consciousness. And I think when you're able to make songs like that, it's very special. It's very rare because usually you're like, could that lyric be better? Could this be better? But I think because it was almost like a therapeutic healing exercise, we weren't worried about that stuff. And so what came out, I think, was a really sweet, there's something very charming and endearing about that song. And I love it. So I'm really glad that it resonated with you.
It is charming is the perfect word that I would use for it. It's a gorgeous song. So thank you for sharing that story. And I love that story as well. It is kind of a, like the fact that it was built or born from a place of no pre-constructs, whatever, that just kind of came out. I absolutely love. So with collaborating with your partner, I know, I think the last time we spoke was 2021, around the time of, there were collaborations with Travis Barker and Tom Morello. This record also has Vic from Pierce the Veil on there. When it does come to collaborators, and I know we've talked about this Spaghetti that was quite organic, but in terms of other tracks, do you have a process of how you pick who you want to work with or who you think is going to be right for a certain song?
Usually the process isn't really a process. It's because that implies maybe a little bit more architecture than exists, or more architectural planning. The case with the 2 collaborations on the last record and the Vic collab on this record, where I had worked on a demo And then either myself or the person I made the song with was like, you know who would be dope to be on this song? Tom Morello. And then I was like, well, I'll text him, you know? So I think the way that those have worked, and same went for Dating My Dad. And then for Irish Goodbye on this new record with Vic, I had finished the demo of it and I screamed on the demo. And I was listening back to it and I was like, man, there's something like really cool and interesting about this song. But it was really like the early version. It was like, it just wasn't realized. It was an early version. And it was, I don't know, something about it just wasn't making sense to me. And I was like, you know who I feel like would kill this song is a Vic. And that he's a pre-existing friend of mine. We've never worked on music together. we're just friends. And so I hit him up and I was actually we did a Instagram live thing today. And I was telling him I had the idea and I sat on it for like a month because I was nervous to ask, because I always feel like I'm bothering people. I never want to bother people. And then from that point forward, it was very organic. And I went down to San Diego, where he lives and where his studio's at, and tracked it with him. And Jaime from Pierce the Veil tracked his vocals, and they sort of had a rhythm and a setup because they had just finished their record. So it was really fun. But I think it's almost like when you're cooking and you taste it and you're like, well, that needs something else. It's like that. This panna cotta needs some Vic Fuentes. Okay.
We're covering the gamut of food today, aren't we? The sweet treats, the spaghetti.
Oh my Lord. That should be title of episode, Sweet Treats.
We're not usually a pod that titles their episodes, but we might change it as a once-off just for this, because I think that's very appropriate. I know that you're about to head out, I think, over the coming months to play shows in the UK and in Europe. How are you feeling about those shows?
Feeling very excited. I actually had a session with my music director this morning, and we're prepping the live set, and we're at the exciting and terrifying point of figuring out how to play a lot of this record live. It was, what was really fun was this past, I did a US co-headline with Grandson and then some other kind of sprinkled dates. And throughout that whole process, we had actually been playing a bunch of the songs from the record live already that weren't released. So I feel like I've got a little bit of a head start on knowing how I want to approach some of them. But, this is I think for me, this is a part of the job I love, which is figuring out how these things translate, how to make an exciting show. I'm at a pretty cool part of my career in that there's a lot of songs to play. So there's a lot of material. And even if we only hit like a verse and a chorus of something, how do we build that journey for people? And I think there's a lot of elements of this record where on the recording we captured the spirit of live instrumentation in a way that I hadn't as much on my previous records. Also just because I had access to like a giant amp room, and I sort of prioritized that. And we had a single drummer, as I mentioned, Eric Imprada, who's an amazing drummer. You might know him. He used to be in Fever 333. He's just an incredible musician, but he played on the record, all the songs. So there is that kind of like live feel and consistency. So I think a lot of it's going to translate really well. And I will say, I can't say anything, but Australia, don't worry. You probably, if you want to come see me, you probably get an opportunity. I'll say that much.
I was gonna, test the waters, see whether there was any opportunity for Australia. So I'm very glad to hear that. We won't push any further than that for the time being. Is there a certain track from this record you're maybe most looking forward to? I know you said you've already played some, but most looking forward to debuting live, or you're waiting to the amount of work that you've put into the live version of one of these new tracks that you're looking forward to debuting?
Well, right now, I think Irish Goodbye is the one. I'm a little biased because I was working on it today, so it's quite top of mind. There's a lot of really fun guitar stuff happening in that song that is exciting territory for me to explore. I mean, it's a really dense track, so there's a lot happening. So I'm really excited about that. I'm also really excited the intro. So the intro to the record, which is called Are You Serious? That we're doing some cool things with that. And I'm feeling also really excited because there, as you've heard on the record, there are some songs that serve these kind of interlude or transitional purposes. And we're integrating them into the live show, and that feels really fun. That's something I haven't done before. We've always had to make transitions, and now there's some raw material on the record for us to do that with.
That's awesome. And as you mentioned, we were very lucky enough to have a listen to the record. Anyone who's listening to this podcast, when you do listen to Mono, Are You Serious? Make sure it's either on a good stereo or good headphones, because that was we usually like to listen to it in a few different places before we chat to the artist. And having good headphones on, I blew my mind. So make sure you're doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. For a record called Mono, I do recommend listening in stereo.
Yeah. It's not instructions, it's a title, and it is, yeah.
No, but it is, this is just a side note about mono versus stereo. But amongst my, production and engineering friends, people more on the tech side of music, they've loved talking to me about, my experience being now a mono listener, because, for anyone listening to this, mixing in mono and mono recordings, there's a very rich history there. And there are still a lot of mix engineers who prefer to do their first couple passes in mono because you're sort of limiting information. And when you limit information, you're able to decide what things are important, often a little bit more easily. So there are a lot of people who really enjoy and see a lot of importance listening in mono. But I, early in my single-sided deafness, I was trying to reference the guitar tone from Sgt. Pepper, and I had forgotten to put my phone in mono. If for some reason it was in stereo, I don't know why. I put my headphones on, hit play. I'm like, I'm like, wait, am I listening? There's a Sgt. Pepper and then there's a reprisal on the record. I was like, oh, is it maybe in the reprisal? So I go to the reprisal. Mm-hmm. I'm like, wait, I straight up had 15 minutes of being like, did I make that up? And I looked it up online and I was like, no, there is a guitar. And then, of course, I realized the Beatles, crazy Beatles, everything's hard panned, completely panned. Mm. So the guitars and the vocals are all the way to the right. And I was alone and I busted up laughing. I was like, dude, that's the funniest shit that ever happened. Just me being like, no, I could have sworn there's a guitar. And but it did make me realize when mixing this record, some moments of hard panning might be really interesting to play with in a way that naturally I hadn't thought about before with mm-hmm. That level of intention. So it's a record that, yeah, definitely if you have the opportunity to listen on stereo headphones, I think there are some moments that will be really exciting and interesting, hopefully.
I would 100% agree with that. I feel like it might be a silly question to ask now, because usually we ask our guests what they're currently listening to, if there's anything at the moment that's kind of taking your fancy. Very quickly, I guess, before we get to that, have you found your relationship with listening to new music any different since what's happened?
Well, I'm just getting to the place. I had a period of time where I was mourning the loss of putting on my headphones or walking into a show or a room and just the music washing over me. Because I have, and you'll find this out if you listen to the record, I have this unrelenting and sadly will be a lifelong ringing in my ear and kind of a static noise that's like always in my non-hearing ear. So I'm kind of never at like full peace with my hearing. There's kind of always some shit happening for maybe the first 8 months. So it's just been a year, or almost a year. First 8 months or so, I was kind of always like, man, but it used to be like, it used to be better. And in the last few months, that feeling has been fading away a bit, which has been lovely. So I've found myself listening to more and more new music, and I've been loving that. So I'm feeling good listening to new music. And I think, the only difference is that, again, I listen to everything in mono now. Mm-hmm. So I miss out, on people doing crazy stereo effects. I do miss that, but
even without, how do I say this? Sometimes the stereo effects are done well. Sometimes not gimmicky, but like they can, it is, I feel like you're still not missing out on too much in terms of you're still getting the core content of what the song is. So
absolutely. And yeah. It's all of this, and this is life period is adjusting. We're all adjusting always to everything. And sometimes we go through periods of more intense adjustment, and sometimes the adjustments are smaller. So I've just been through a period of a little more intense adjustment, and that's okay. I'm just riding this crazy wave, eating apple fritters, trying to stay, just also have having a bit of a sense of humor. This record is kind of serious, but it's also, I hope those winks shine through, because I have found quite a bit of humor in my life period, and particularly in this last year.
I would say, having listened to the record and looking forward to people listening to the record when it comes out on Friday, it definitely still retains your personality and your charm in terms of the winks, the nods, it's not, there's doom and gloom, but there's also the other side of that as well. So I absolutely love this record. Very quickly, we're going to let you get to that apple fritter. Is there one song or one artist at the moment that you're listening to more than others?
Oh, I've been listening a ton to the Sir Chloe record. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I've actually been listening as to it as a record, but I've been loving it. I Am the Dog is the name of it, and it has a lot of the elements of rock music that I love, and it has a toughness that I love.
I love that. We will definitely be checking that out. Thank you very much for that recommendation. K.Flay, the new record, Mono, it is out Friday, but thank you once again for coming back to the pod. We very much appreciate it. It is always such a lovely time talking to you. So thank you for that. And we will let you get to that apple fritter now. We're not, I'll give you the signal. So please, thank you again.
Thank you for having me. And thank you for the great chat.
I just had a few drinks. I'm only driving home. I've done this before. I'll be fine. right?
Driving high or drunk is a selfish choice that puts all of us at risk. Plan for a sober ride share, or metro. DC police are arresting impaired drivers, so drive sober or get pulled over. A message from the DC Highway Safety Office, Metropolitan Police Department Chief Pamela A. Smith, and everyone you'll save by driving sober.